Opened in 1924, heritage-listed Brisbane Arcade was designed by architect Richard Galley. Galley was engaged by siblings Dr. James O'Neill Mayne and Miss Mary Amelia Mayne to build one of Brisbane's first shopping arcades in a style reminiscent of late 18th century European design. Now, let's go back to the very beginning and to Patrick Mayne and the Mayne inheritance. In 1848, an impoverished Irish immigrant called Patrick Mayne came into money and purchased two of Queensland's most coveted land blocks on Queen Street in Brisbane. By 1849, only a year later, Patrick and his family had moved into their new home and business, a butcher's shop in the physical location now known as the Brisbane Arcade. What isn't as well known is that in 1848, a friend of Patrick Mayne's, a timber cutter, a sawyer, and an ex-convict known as Robert Cox, met up with Patrick at the Bush Inn in Kangaroo Point and was later discovered robbed of £350 and murdered. And it was a gruesome murder by all accounts. On his deathbed, Patrick Mayne confessed to his friend's murder and robbery, and his restless ghost has been sighted on multiple occasions near the Adelaide entrance of the Brisbane Arcade, which was of course the original location of his home. The most sighted spirit within the walls of the Brisbane Arcade would have to be the Lady in Black, or the milliner from the gallery level. She is often seen walking in a determined fashion along the balustraded gallery level walkways, dressed exclusively in black and wearing a bonnet adorned with a beige and cream lace. It is said she is the ghost of the original milliner who kept a shop on the gallery level and, following a failed romance, threw herself from the gallery onto the marble floor below, breaking her neck. And lastly, we have the well-documented Brisbane Arcade murder, that of Bronia Armstrong in 1947. The Central Queensland Herald reported that on the 10th of January 1947, Reginald Wingfield Spence Brown, a 49-year-old accountant, murdered Bronia Mary Armstrong. Miss Armstrong's partly clad body was found the next morning in room 5 of the offices of the Brisbane Associated Friendly Societies Institute, located above the arcade. Armstrong was employed under Brown's direct supervision and in his office as a typist. Brown being her immediate superior, it was said that he had developed a sexual passion towards Armstrong, and on the afternoon of January the 10th, when they were alone, he attacked her. Armstrong screamed piercingly for some time before Brown knelt upon her elbows and suffocated her by applying pressure on her chest, and after she became exhausted, placed something over her mouth. Nurse Lorna Major, employed at the BAFS rooms, arrived at the rooms at 8:30 o'clock the next day to be confronted by Armstrong's body. A few moments prior, Brown had informed her that he had been assaulted the previous night, and this of course was the reason for the marks upon his body. The Telegraph reported that Mr. Justice Mansfield stated, "This verdict, I think, is justified by the evidence. The facts disclose this was probably one of the most brutal and pathetic cases in the history of Queensland crimes." The Northern Star reported that the Crown Prosecutor, in a final address to the jury, said damning and telling evidence had been given and the jury would take into account the fact that it had not been answered. Armstrong's ghost is said to still haunt the inhabitants of the office her body passed away inside, moving objects and causing electrical problems. Two of Reginald Wingfield Spence Brown's descendants wrote a book defending their grandfather's innocence in regard to the arcade murder that was released in 2013. You will learn more about Brown's final demise at our final stop, Boggo Road Jail.